Okay, the cutting board design we're going to use today, I had gotten from Mark Spagnuolo, the Wood Whisperer, and he used some different woods, but today I'm going to be using cherry and maple, like we talked about. I surface planed the boards all so that they are 1 5/8 inches thick, and I've ripped them down into these sizes: 2 that are 2 1/4, 2 that are 1 3/4. We got 2 that are 1 1/4, and 2 matching boards that are 3/4 inches thick. Okay, well, I left the boards a little long so I can trim it off later at the table saw, but for now we're going to take the 2 wide boards and put them on the outside, and then we're going to mix up the grain, the species. We're going to put the maple next to the cherry, the next widest, and then the cherry by the maple. Then our next widest board will go cherry, and then the maple. Okay, and that's for the 1 1/4, and this is the 3/4 inch boards. Okay, and then the whole thing is going to be glued up like this. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to glue these up for the next step. Okay, now that we have our boards arranged, I'm going to flip the boards over on their sides here. I've got some wax paper here to keep them from sticking to the clamps. I'll turn them all over on their side except the last one. And I'll just spread some glue. I'm using Titebond 3. Okay, now I put a 1/4 inch round over bit in my router, and I'm routing the edges of the board to soften the edges. Here I have the dust collector hooked up to the router, which makes it nice. You don't get all that dust flying everywhere. Here you can also see the pattern I'd created. When I cross-cut the board into 1 1/4 inch strips, I flipped every other one over to create this pattern. You can see that the wider boards are on the outside, and then they narrow as they go in. I think the center boards are the 3/4 inch boards. So here I'm just routing around the edge, getting it smooth. Okay, now I have the sander out, the random orbital sander. Also has a dust extractor hooked up, so it kind of blows air out of the center. And then the holes around the pad kind of suck the dust back in. So it's really nice if I'm sanding in the basement. You don't get hardly any dust at all. Most of these tools are made by Festool from Germany. But here I'm just sanding out some of the marks that my drum sander left when I ran it through that to get the dried glue off. So I'm smoothing it out, trying to get it to look nice. Okay, well, the sander, I went up to 220 grit. Now with some sandpaper, 320 grit, I'm softening the edges from the router, kind of smoothing those out a little bit. I also sanded where the handles were. You can see the handles here in a second. Okay, so there's the handle. You could kind of see it for a second. I used a router with a straight cutting bit and a guide bushing and just kind of ran a couple passes through there to cut out a recess for your fingers to grab the board when it's sitting on the table. Here I'm just kind of smoothing off those edges a little bit. Okay, now I'm putting some finish on. I started with some butcher block oil and let that soak in a little bit. You can see it looks a little darker now. Now I'm setting up these little triangles to put the board on. I'm going to use some salad bowl finish on it, which is food safe finish, so don't have to worry about any chemicals getting in your food. So I just put gloves on, and I got an old t-shirt. Kind of made a little staining pad out of it. Rolled it up. And I'll just put some finish on, let it soak in. This finish kind of seals the top of the cutting board, so you won't get food or any juices going down into the wood. It should kind of block that out. Another thing, as you use the board, if you start to cut through this finish, it starts to look kind of worn out, you can use more butcher block oil or mineral oil to kind of treat it again. Okay, well, the final step is branding the board. Here I'm just getting the torch out. I'm going to heat up my branding iron. This kind of puts my name on the board. I like to do it to my projects. So you have to heat this branding iron up with a blowtorch. Get it hot enough to burn into the wood. It takes about 5 minutes or so to get it hot enough.